Well, Sarah will not be joining us this morning. So you've got me. And I don't know who else will not, or who will be here. So we don't have, so our intent today was to come up with a schedule, or at least talk about what we want 2022 to look like for this group. And my first question was about frequency of meetings for, efficiency's sake, right? And I don't want to come in here and change things, but, is twice a month too much? I know that the meetings generally are running an hour. So, and what are thoughts about that? Would it be more effective to have once a month, maybe 2 hours versus twice a month at 1 to 1.5?
Oh, I'm not giving any, I'm not even on the CIC.
There's excellent.
Well, I think as you become more familiar with the group, that twice a month really isn't sometimes enough. I mean, there are many times we go over the hour time frame, and I would hate to sit and think that we would be doing 3 hours at a time via Zoom.
Okay. Yes, that would be rough.
And there are a lot of different areas on the schedule that we address, and we try to address them twice a year. So I don't see how you could do it once a month and do it well.
Okay, can I make a suggestion? I know a lot of people who enjoy attending meetings. It might be nice if one somewhere once in a while was after 5 p.m. for people who work. So.
So maybe once a month, so maybe have a morning.
Up to
and
what
an
works for
afternoon.
you guys, but I know that there's a lot of people that, can't be part of this group simply because they have jobs, so it's taking out a large portion of our.
So could we do like a Zoom meeting once a month that's later? Because this building closes officially at 4, but if Shauna or Sarah were home and folks zoomed in, maybe we can have a later meeting once a month, like maybe the second one perhaps.
I know.
I would have no problem with doing one morning meeting and one evening meeting.
Yeah, so just
We've
a
also
Zoom
had
in.
parks that are, parks meetings we've had at parks facilities in the evening, like,
Oh,
the
okay.
Westlake Road Schoolhouse or Onanda or at the lodge on, in Outhouse, any of those, if you didn't want to be there, so.
I like the Zoom idea in that I can't even tell you how many night meetings. So Zooming, to be able to Zoom from home would be fantastic. I don't want to commit myself to another meeting at
Right.
night.
Right.
I've got so many. So if I could do it from home, that would be amazing, just to not have to facilitate actually going somewhere.
I think a lot of people are used to it by now,
Yeah.
and it's doable, and you are home, and if it's snowing out or what have you, you could still meet.
Yeah.
Some guys.
I-
can't do
Yeah, or someone's working at your house and you can't leave, things like
Right.
that.
The thing is, I wouldn't like to tie up another evening in my month. I'm busy, and this is an important group, and I understand wanting the population of the town to be familiar at least, but I think offering a one meeting a month would be appropriate. I don't see doing both meetings a month.
Oh,
in the
no,
evening.
No, just
1
one.
a.m., 1 p.m. I like the time environment, the ACB, 4:30.
4:30.
I love that time. But then you still have people that are working.
How old are your kids?
My kids are 12, 10, and 6.
That's why you love that time. Give it 2 years.
Right? Because they're not doing a whole lot.
And
at
they
that
start
time.
playing varsity games.
Right,
And,
right.
after school activities. That is the worst time on the planet. But anyway. But I mean, there's no time that works for anybody. It's just that,
Right.
and I'm not really thinking necessarily about people viewing the meetings, because they can do that anytime. I'm more thinking about, no one could ever be a member of this committee who works 9 to 5 right now.
That's true.
That's what I'm thinking about more than just viewing the meetings. Because if you care about the meetings, and I know I've talked to people who do, they watch these meetings, they watch the planning board, they watch all sorts of stuff later. But if it's something where you might potentially want to become involved, you couldn't do that right now because you just would never be able to make a meeting. That might be something if you switched it to, and that goes for any of our groups that meet during the day, really. But this particular group is definitely a very important group, and
It
it
is.
leads the track of the town. And I just feel like if we're missing 50% of our residents to be able to ever be part of it, it's a big chunk of, big chunk of people. So.
Mhm. I agree with that.
Well, can you hear me, everyone?
Hi, Oksana.
Hi, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Just a quick question. Sarah usually mans the Zoom. Is that you with the actual phone number as well?
Yeah, that's my phone number.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. How many years have we been meeting? 6 years, I think.
At least.
And
I
yeah,
thought
five or six.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've never had any problems with people meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we have never had anybody call in or come to a in-person meeting. So I don't see what the issue really is. I mean, today, I wasn't sure if we were having a meeting or not because I don't remember if we received notice. But anyway, I'm in the meeting, and usually most everyone is in the meeting.
Yeah, but
But
Oksana, Adeline brought up the fact that the people who are members of this committee are all available in the morning, and there might be people in the community who are not available in the morning who might be interested in being part of this group if we had an evening meeting. And so I guess I agree with you, Oksana. I would prefer to have the meetings in the morning. But perhaps we could do a test time frame of say 6 months to a year to see if there is interest from someone in the community who would attend the meeting if it were once monthly, once a month, an evening meeting, once a month, a morning meeting. At least they'd be able to attend half the time and see what's going on. So that's what
I would,
agree to.
yeah. Okay, well, let's do that. I wouldn't do it like for 6 months. Why don't we do it for like 2 or 3 months and see if anybody is going to attend?
I would go with that too.
Okay, and with COVID raging right now, or whatever next variant we're going to get, I think we should just have the Zoom meeting and not be in person.
Well, I'm okay with having the hybrid situation.
We
Yeah.
right now, we're gonna continue hybrids until
Mhm.
we're told otherwise, because those that are vaccinated and feel comfortable attending in person are welcome to do that.
The open
Okay.
meeting is only through January 15th at this point.
Absolutely right. So
So-
Saturday, the executive order expires, and obviously, most likely, it will continue. So we'll know more about how that's gonna come down from the state after Saturday, or maybe even before.
They go into session tomorrow, so.
What does
Yeah.
Doug think about this?
So good morning,
Hi,
you guys. Good morning,
Morning.
everybody. I was in Farmington for a meeting this morning, and then Shauna, just so you know, I logged in as myself and I was in the waiting room for a while. So that's why I re-logged in as, so I don't know if anybody else had that issue or not, getting in this morning. So it's my understanding, just to answer the first thing, it's my understanding, and Adeline, I don't know if you know something different, but I think that the governor just extended everything until February 1st, I think is what I heard. And then,
It was the 15th, yeah.
yeah.
February 1st.
Yeah, that's the last I heard, is that the governor just extended everything to February 1st for the hybrid stuff. And I think the state legislature still got to take something up though before January 15th. So a couple things. I was talking to Shauna. So, you know, I was a big believer in going back to the roots, right? So the original purpose of the CIC was a representative from each of our boards and committees to kind of convene to help give direction of the implementation of the comprehensive plan, right? And so a big piece of that was a representative and a former representative, planning board, zoning board, environmental conservation board, town board. One of the things that we have going on right now is that we haven't yet had the organizational meeting, and you got some changes coming on some of those boards. But I think we go back to each of those boards and say, hey, from your group to be sharing information back and forth, right, with the CIC. The CIC is just basically the collection, the piece where, you know, the representatives of those different boards come together, share information, talk about the general direction, and take that back and forth. The CIC was never actually intended, despite its name, to actually be wide, you know, public events, or, you know, they're always open to the public, but it was never to really bring hundreds of people together in terms of being able to move that forward. Now, where there's always been public outreach, there's always been project teams, there's always been meetings, you know, there's been evening meetings, there's been kickoff team meetings, and all those types of things, where that's where we've brought together the 100+ people, and we can certainly look at doing that again. But the core group has always been those strategic representatives of the various boards coming together. And I think one of the things that's missing here is, well, two things. I think general direction. I'll touch on that in a second. And then the second thing is that joint meeting of all of our boards. We haven't done that. I know I've talked to Jared about us doing that. That's something I think that's desperately needed, where we get, especially with new members coming on the zoning board, planning board, environmental conservation board, town board, we get all those groups back together. The CIC can help facilitate that, just like the strategic planning, and bring those groups back together so everybody can talk. But the other thing is, you think back to the CIC when we started it, and what I mean about direction, we had very specific direction. You know, every single meeting we had a topic where we were talking about whatever item it was from the comprehensive plan that we were working on at that given time. We had a guest speaker come in, and maybe twice a month is too much for that right now. Maybe we need to look at once a month, and then have our project teams, which are more broad focused, and those can be in the evenings, and you have a lot more people. But we need to first, I think, going back to the basics, find out from the planning board, find out from the zoning board, find out from the ECB and the town board, who are their representatives to the CIC. And then we factor in, we've always had former members of each of those groups from a historical significance perspective. And then that group of those core people, and not Parks and Rec, I didn't mean to leave off Parks and Rec, and maybe Ag Committee too. But then that core group should be giving us some direction in what works best, so that we can get the best participation from those core groups. I mean, it's hard for us just to decide what's the best time or what's a good time without knowing who all the participants should be of the CIC. All right, with that, I was long-winded, sorry, and I'm driving.
Thank you, Doug, for that. So,
But I would really recommend we start with going back to the planning board and saying, hey, who is your representative to the CIC? Go back to the zoning board. Who is your representative to the CIC, the ECB, the Ag, the Parks and Rec? Let's get and then the town board. Let's get those 6 people together as
Okay.
a core, right? And then we'll factor in the historical significance, then you're probably talking a core group of like 10. And let's say to that core group of 10, hey, what is the best time for you guys to meet? Mornings, nights, weekends, whatever it is, let's figure that out. And then that would give us some direction.
That sounds great. So really after the org meeting, which is Monday, we can really work on this.
But I think one of the things that we still need to be, the project teams, right? We have the 5 key goals for this year.
Right.
You know, those 5 goals, right, that we need to be working on. Do we need any new project teams for that? When is our project team kickoff meeting going to be? The project team kickoff meetings, that's usually when we brought everybody in together. It's traditionally been a night, an evening meeting where we bring everybody in together and we try to get as many people from the general public to participate in those project teams as possible. We've usually done those towards the end of January. I
Okay.
think the one thing that's missing right now is the basic information, but there's really no reason why we can't be planning those.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just walking into the town hall. I'm going to disconnect here in a second.
Okay.
Okay. I think that sounds good.
Right, I brought our 5 goals.
Can you email those out to like everyone, basically?
I did, I will do
I know
it
it was
again.
we did right after it.
Yeah,
it'd be
but
nice
we
to-
should, I know, I was, yes. Yeah, this is a great jumping off point. I will read them again. I am sweating. in this mask
warm
today.
down
Is
here.
it? Yeah, is it me or is it, I'm like literally sweating.
You're too young for that stuff.
All right, support, I'm gonna read the action steps that we came up with from the strategic plan meeting, strategic 2022 meeting. Support the development of affordable housing and affordable transportation options for the local workforce. That's one. I will send these out again.
Mhm.
Encourage continued ag use of viable farmland and discourage development of those parcels by directing development to more appropriate locations within the town, such as the 3 identified growth nodes.
Which is basically what this one is too.
Yes.
Promote housing and development growth within identified growth nodes and discourage development in environmentally sensitive areas.
Right.
Advise ordinances needed to achieve this goal.
Invest in construction of roads, sidewalks, and bike lanes.
And then I
Hello,
don't,
dog.
is this
Sorry,
one of them
it's
too
fine.
then? This one?
Yeah,
Is permanently protect lands with natural resource significance and support recreation on protected lands.
very, very natural resource driven.
Mhm.
Preservation driven. Yes. So I will send these out again.
Dogs everywhere today. You moved from inside the little box, didn't you?
Whoa, it's like magic.
8 AM meeting in Farmington, sorry guys, Karen, you're muted.
Shauna,
Yeah,
I had to step away for a minute. Is there a, one of the 5 goals, something related to Parks and Rec?
Kind of.
well,
This-
not
this one is.
specifically Parks and Rec,
This one
but
is.
protect natural resource, lands with significant natural
There's one that
resources.
says permanently protect lands with natural resource significant and support recreation on protected lands. That one.
Okay, because the chairperson of the Parks and Rec Committee, Mark, has been repeatedly saying that one of the goals was to hire
Right.
a Parks and
ahead.
Rec director, or what, however you want to put it. Essentially someone like, I take it Dennis was, I think that's what he has in mind, but I wanted to clarify for him what those goals are, and perhaps they should be sent out to all of the chair people of the committees.
Absolutely, and I think when we do the project kickoff meeting and start that coordination, I will send everything out, including, these. the priority action steps for this year.
It was either the November or December town board meeting, the town board adopted
Adopted.
by resolution. Those are the
Yes.
strategic action items for 22.
Yeah.
So that's right. So those 5 strategic things, and a couple of them are related to each other.
Yes.
But, you know, do we need another project team to work us on those? So the other thing is that I'm working on that, not yet ready to advance, but getting closer, is we have what I would call currently a piecemeal approach to conservation programs, essentially. We have our PDR, there's the state program, there's the federal program. We've worked with Finger Lakes Land Trust. We've got our own open space stuff that we've done. We've got a recreation component to that. So I've actually been for a couple of months now working on what I'm calling, because I don't know what else to call it yet, a Town of Canandaigua comprehensive conservation program that has 7 different avenues on what conservation protection might look like in the town of Canandaigua based on what avenue you go down. For instance, if it's farmland, like a PDR program, if the town was looking to acquire land or development rights for land, or if somebody was willing to donate a conservation easement, those types of things. Putting it in basically a simplistic little chart, but just so that it's easier to say, hey, when somebody comes in and they're interested in protecting a parcel, like I just had a conversation with, some of you know Tom Rogers. Tom owns land in the town of Canandaigua, and we were actually meeting, actually a Rotary audit meeting. We were in this room, and Tom started looking at the maps, and he's like, hey, I have land that's in the forest protection area. Does that get me anything? And I'm like, well, we could talk about conservation, you know, so those types of conversations, so that we'd explore those. I need help. I've got basic kind of like, so let me back up for a second. Remember 2 years ago, right before COVID, we started a conservation project team.
Mhm.
And there were 2 main outcomes of that conservation project team. The first was the whole conservation subdivision. The second was this conservation program. Conservation subdivision, we got that done. The conservation program, we haven't completed that yet. So I've been working on that in terms of being able to start to stimulate some ideas and thoughts. It's no way final or finished, and it's not even ready to present to any of our boards or committees. But it's probably, when we talk about the project teams, it's probably good to either revive that conservation project team or start a new one or whatever to work on that second piece, because those were the 2 main outcomes for that conservation project team. So conservation subdivision, I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. We updated the regulations and we have the scenic view shed overlay now, right? So
Right.
those were the 2. So that part is done. So now it's the programming piece of it.
And I was part of that conservation subdivision discussion, and I kind of wondered, you know, why it just dropped off and we didn't continue on to implement, you know, to really develop a program for that. So is that what you're suggesting, Doug?
Yeah, exactly. So the,
Okay.
you know, kind of the combination of COVID and we got the conservation subdivision regulations
Yeah.
done. So we kind of
Yeah.
got that piece. We worked through COVID on the subdivision regulations, but now it's time for us to really think about the programming side. And the other thing is the state program has significantly changed. And there's a variety of different pieces that come into play with the conservation, specifically for agriculture protection, because the new Ag and Markets program is designed really for the larger farming operations. So, you know, we have Brocklebanks, we have Brock Acres, we have Catalpa Acres, right? We've got Stryker. So specifically Brock and Catalpa, they'll probably want to put more of their land into the program, which is awesome, right? It's not a bad thing. It's part of the whole Paddle for Brook Greenway and all that stuff. But the issue is the smaller farming operations that currently exist in the town of Canandaigua, they no longer qualify for that state program with the changes that Ag and Markets did to it currently for 22. So you get like, and I'll use an example of Justin Damon, the Damon Farm.
Mhm.
That no longer really qualifies for
Right.
the state program. It does qualify for the federal program, but the problem is the federal program only funds at 50%, doesn't fund at 75% like the state program of the value, right? So, you know, we just did this closing with the Purdy's. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm long-winded today, you guys. I'm sorry.
You're good.
But the Keith Purdy farm, right? We just closed on that. So they got 75% of the development rights. And we call it a discounted sale, right? Because they're only getting 75% of the value now. And what I had talked to them all through that process was that other 25% that they don't get, working with their tax accountant, because they can use that, those tax incentives, right, as basically a credit or a gifting of that other 25%. They're taking a loss on their sale of their development rights, and then they can help offset the capital gains with that 75% that they got. All right, set that aside. When you're talking about the federal program, which is only 50% funding of those development rights, you get some of these farm operations, and Sarah's having those conversations right now with Justin Damon and with Sam Casella and some of those ones that we had already previously approved. They're like, well, I don't know that this is worth it moving forward, right? So that's where this whole conservation program comes into play. We need to start thinking about, are we going to just let these small to medium-sized farms disappear? Are we going to try to do something? All that to be determined, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Where's the Damon Farm in North Carolina?
Woolhouse, they're both just
Yeah.
off of Woolhouse, yeah. Yep.
Towards Bristol Road or
Cheshire.
towards Cheshire?
Cheshire.
Cheshire, outside of Cheshire.
Yeah. And then there's the piece with the private conservation easements, and then there's, you know, we have any number of properties that the town of Canandaigua owns that are quote unquote open space, right? And so then those pieces, and so that's where it gets into programming aspects, you know, so, and then even that, I mean, you talk about starting smaller, the low hanging fruit, that one goal talks about recreation opportunities on those lands that are protected, right? We have the prime example of that out our back door. And we've always said trail connecting over here and then eventually connecting to Miller, right? So it's like some of those types of things are low hanging fruit, right? And we need to be continuing to explore those also.
Mhm. And the 13-year-old Trans.
It would
Which has,
be-
by the way, a number of summaries of how to acquire land for parks and trails. So,
Mhm. I think it would be amazing for us to have like a one-stop shop. This is, you know, where we don't have to kind of flounder around and say,
Right.
well, we've got this, and then maybe
Right.
you could do that. Like,
Mhm.
you know, here's our website,
options.
Right.
this is what you can do,
Right.
this is what you can do.
Exactly.
And I think
And
shorter
it's easy.
is, I think I like the idea of
Yeah.
a chart, because the
Yeah.
shorter you can make it, the better. I mean, no one reads 100-page.
Exactly,
Like,
right.
no one.
Right.
So,
But it's-
not even the people that are on the committee.
Similar to like what we
Exactly.
wanna do with Uptown, you know, this is shovel ready, you've got this, you've got
Yeah.
this, you've got sewer,
Exactly.
you've got water.
Right.
Here you go.
Right.
Same thing,
Right.
this is what you can do to preserve this parcel.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
So the one thing, and Shauna, I just don't know what other project teams, obviously affordable housing, I know that one, but what other project teams are currently in existence?
Is the tree team a project team?
It
Are
is.
they their own? So they've
No.
got, so you have the tree team,
Mhm.
you've got affordable housing.
Where's the environmental committee coming off of? Is that coming off of the town board or?
The ECB is a
Not
separate,
ECB, there's
so the
still
environmental
that
committee
environmental
that existed through December 31st, right?
Okay.
Yeah, they're-
That was a town board committee,
committee. Okay,
but
Yeah.
yeah,
so it's now.
so it
just-
doesn't
it's
technically
now-
exist today.
ECB is
so
locked. Well,
So
it's
you have
standing.
two, just
Just the
housing and the
affordable,
tree.
right? So
So there
maybe.
is
What
no.
about the history one? Is that off of this?
Uh,
So
history is
that-
Project team, you're right, it is
Oh, the
project.
history
team.
team.
Yeah.
So Doug, do the project teams need to be resolved, but for lack of a better word, by the town board, or the fact that there is an affordable housing team, does that continue through the next year?
No, so the way we set those up is the project teams report technically to the CIC. So like, for instance, the affordable housing team is, or the project, yeah, the affordable housing project team is advisory to the CIC, with the CIC making recommendations ultimately to the town board officially. But those resolutions establish those project teams for that purpose. So I forgot about that. That's what I feel like we need an updated list of the project teams that even exist, because I don't even know them off the top of my head, right? But the history team is another perfect example of that. That is for sure, that was a project team. That wasn't set up as a separate
And may I make a
standalone committee.
suggestion, when we make a list of the project teams, I think it would be helpful for members of the community that want to get involved in the town, if we had a list of general committees and ways that they can volunteer, not just the boards that we advertise, but if we could somehow have a clear-cut list that's like interested in helping out our town. We have these various committees, you know, that are available, you know, not just when there's an opening on said committee.
Well, that's usually when we do that, really, is when we do the project kickoff meetings. So again, now's the perfect time to be getting this list together,
Mhm.
setting a meeting late January
Yeah.
evening, saying, hey, we're gonna have this 2022 kickoff team meeting. If you're interested, here's our current projects that we're working on. Come get involved.
Yes, great. And I remember when we've done that in the past, going to
Yeah.
that, and it was very successful.
Yeah.
We had one that was down here. that was really nicely attended.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we got away from that the last 2 years, essentially with COVID, right? But I mean, I just heard something on the news this morning. I was listening to Worldwide News, and they said the biggest threat is this year to the global economy is China, is COVID policy, and they're essentially going on lockdown again, which means there's going to be continued issues. They still don't have the vaccine. They won't use Pfizer or Moderna, and their vaccine isn't as effective. And they said, we're going to be dealing with this for the next couple of years, right? So we've got to figure out a way to keep moving forward, even though we have this. So whether it's hybrid or whatever it is, or maybe we need to, instead of doing the meetings here, like a bigger meeting like this, we find another venue where we can spread it out a little bit more and still do it. You know, we've got to
person,
just
but-
rethink, but keep things moving, because otherwise we're just going to sit here and spin our wheels, right? So.
So I just have a question for you. I just got an email from Matt Horn about telling the town board where the affordable housing team is, which I had asked. You know that I had asked him to put something together. And I think he intends to do that in a privilege of the floor on Monday's meeting. Monday, is it next Monday? Yes. Meeting. I think I would ask him to delay that, or should I have him go ahead and do that?
Well, I think it's one of the goals, right? It's clearly one of the 5, affordable housing. So I think it's good to update the board, but I think in addition to that, once we get the new CIC together, assuming we are gonna have a new CIC, we should also have that same update to the CIC, because technically it's a project team for the CIC. So it's that, the affordable housing, it's both, really. We need to be
Yeah.
updating the board and everything, but really the members of the CIC need to be aware and engaged also, kind of what the process is and what's going on with it.
Well, one of the reasons I had him do that is because we've been talking about doing a developer landowner meet and greet.
Mhm.
And of course, now we're limited with COVID rules, but I know I feel that should be done sooner rather than later, especially with the interest in the uptown properties. So my question to the people at this CIC meeting is, should I have Matt go ahead and do this during the privilege of the floor on Monday's meeting, or should I have him delay it till February's meeting? I almost think maybe it'd be better to delay it to February's meeting.
Well, there's a lot that's really starting to shape up for this agenda anyway, but Karen, or providing a report, we could attach a report just so everybody's aware too. But I do think everybody's very interested in it. And it is one of the 5 strategic action items.
Okay, so I'll ask him, I have to go over it and talk to him about it. I think I'm going to ask him to tone it down a bit, but I want him to lead into the meet and greet for the developers and landowners. But after these COVID restrictions calm down a bit, perhaps, so maybe in the March timeframe.
Right. And then
So,
Karen, I was going to reach out to you too. I was writing, I have a whiteboard in my office and I was writing these 5 goals on my whiteboard so that I see them every single day. I'm a very visual person. I want to be able to see them and be reminded every single day. And there's a second piece to this goal, and it's sitting here right in front of me that I don't remember us once talking about. Affordable housing is part 1. Part 2, affordable transportation
transportation.
for the local workforce.
And I'm well aware of that, and that's one reason why I've, but we haven't addressed it. We need to think in terms of developers providing space for transportation, such as bus service and hybrid cars and bicycles, those types of things. We actually, I have Senator Helming talking at the next meeting this month, but in February, we could address the transportation element of the need for affordable housing, because it goes hand in hand, of course, as you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and even to our existing areas in the town of Canandaigua that, you know, whether it's Creekview or some of the areas where we need to be discussing public transportation or affordable transportation options, right? So.
Yep, actually Creekview and hammocks.
Mhm.
And I almost think we have Jackie Lytle from Happiness House, who has joined our team, and I think they should also be included in looking at, I think they would be interested in the transportation issues. Okay, so I'm going to ask him to add a little piece about touching on transportation, and I'll just have him do a brief privilege of the floor on Monday, just to let him know that we're active, which I think is important. Is that okay with you?
Yeah. It's all good.
With the CIC? Okay.
I think though, one of the big things that, and I know I want to talk to you about a bunch of different stuff, and that was one of the things I wanted to chat with you about, was getting a commitment from somebody from the planning board, the zoning board, the ECB. Pat, you know, you're always here. Thank you so much for doing it. And the Parks and Rec and maybe the Ag Committee, and then the town board, right? Because then you have your core 6 of the crossover of our
Yes,
official
representatives.
boards.
That would be the number 1.
Can we have 2 members if another person wants to
Yeah,
come?
I mean, we can always go
Do we
back
have
and
to
ask
do
the
one
town
per
board to
team?
revisit, right? But of whatever, but at least, right?
Right,
So that
Minimum.
there's the cross, because that's what seems like it's always worked the best, is when you have that communication flow between all the boards and committees. So
Yeah.
that's been the beauty of the CIC, being able to have that information going back and forth.
mhm.
Well, actually, I was appointed to the CIC by the Parks and Rec Committee as their representative. And, you know, I'm happy to continue to do that. The nice thing though is we have Lindsay, who is in steady contact with the Parks and Rec issues. So she's a good adjunct.
I'd have to say too, whether it's the people coming that are the CIC members from the various boards, or if it's someone just from the CIC, I have noticed in the town board meetings that I've gone to, there is rarely someone updating the town board in the town board meeting about what the various teams are working on. And for me personally, I'd like to see that happening more in 2022, that we're having people directly reporting. I mean, there's that whole section every month and, you know, maybe one or two people are in there in person or on Zoom, able to give an update on their committee. And I think that, you know, the town board meeting can also be sort of a summary for the people of the community that aren't gonna be going to all these meetings, to be able to see what's going on. I'd like to see there be somebody reporting either from the CIC or from those different boards to the town board on a at least quarterly basis at some point.
Well, so two things. So the reports, right, there, so they're attached.
Yes.
So the CIC actually has not been doing a report lately. But in the past, the CIC had always done a report, a written report. And we actually had a secretary who took minutes and then was providing those, so that essentially, so Shauna, that's something maybe to look at. And again,
Okay.
having that, I don't know if Kim Burkhardt could maybe think about that or whatever the case, but
How often was
For-
that report given?
monthly, it was a
Monthly, okay.
monthly report attached to the town board meeting. But then in addition, the quarterly meetings took place. The goal was always quarterly joint meetings or at least twice a year, and those haven't happened at all in the last 2 years. But getting back to that goes a long way in this cross communication also.
Well, it's also, it's just nice to have, other than just a report, to actually have someone in front of you that you can ask a question of as well, you know, and I think for the town board members, that's particularly important that they're on top of what everyone's working on. Otherwise, why are you working on it, you know? I mean, it's meant to get to go to these boards. That's the whole point of it, so.
Okay, well, I will reach out to each board.
Yeah, well, now's a good time, right? So you're gonna have 2 new, possibly 3 new planning board
Planning board.
members. You're gonna have at least 1 new zoning board member, right? You've got, I think, some brand new ECB members. I think,
There's a new town board.
What about Parks and Rec?
well, there'll be 2 new town
Yeah,
board
they're
members,
on
right?
board.
You won't be the newest one for long, right?
I know.
So you've got Karen
Karen
representing
for
the
Parks
Parks
and
and
Rec,
Rec,
and then
right?
Ag will reach out too.
And then Ag, right? So
Yeah.
that's those are
I
your.
think I'd reach out to all the committees
5.
and make sure that
And the
everybody who
town
has
board.
been doing it still wants to be doing it, you know,
Right.
and everything else.
And the town board in the past has had a representative. I
Got it.
mean, the town board officially, I believe, had Gary as the representative. but
Right, right.
The town board representative to the CIC. So.
All right, and then I will start the process of scheduling the kickoff meeting for the end of January.
So is Sarah not going to be involved in the CIC anymore? Or Shauna, are you taking her place or are you
I
just?
I am. She will be involved as needed, but I'll be taking her over her
Okay.
role.
Okay. So you would be our contact person from now on?
I am it. Yep.
All right.
And maybe we do need to think about secretary because Sean, I know you're in a lot of different meetings and stuff. We're trying to transition Sarah, pull some stuff back a little bit. Her request. So Shauna taking over obviously as planner is logical, but maybe a secretary to help with the
Absolutely.
minutes, reports, and even helping coordinating the communication might go a long way.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely.
And then sending out reminders to everybody about the meeting and then how you get in and all that stuff, so.
Can we go back to the Zoom, the second Zoom meeting or the second meeting? How's everybody feeling about that? Doing the second meeting of the month. I don't know if you were in when we were talking about that. For now.
I'm just always going to advocate in every committee that there are more accessibility people outside the 9 to 5 period. So you guys make. your
Why
own
don't you,
choices.
why don't you make that a, how about if that's the project teams? Instead of official 2 meetings plus, what if you did 1 CIC meeting plus the project team meetings
Is
They
the
could-
second.
as the second, but those could be evening, whatever, and those could happen. I mean, there's no reason why you can't have, you come together and split out in project teams and use our rooms, right? And then come back together if you need to or whatever, just and laser focused on whatever that project is, right? And it goes back to exactly, some of this is planning for that kickoff team, right? And then you advertise we've got this, if people want to get involved with the history, or we've got this, if, you know, and then see who comes.
Right.
Usually what we've had in the past is we've had really good participation in those kickoff meetings when they're really advertised well. And then it tapers off over time, but that's okay. I mean, that's natural, right? That's a natural cycle. But I would definitely start with a list of all the project teams, because I'm sure I'm missing. off
I'm
the top
sure,
of
and
my
I
head.
know Sarah's very good about that.
And then we can advertise, hey, we've got this and
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I've had requests for that before too.
yeah, when I started, she gave me a very detailed list of committees and teams and,
I think we need to have it very clear on the website, we've talked about this before, even having one of the pull downs be, how do I volunteer, you know, something.
It's
like
on
that.
there. It's on the website.
Yeah, and having it in there, so,
We added a new section on it. so-
Yeah.
so today is the 4th. Well, the next meeting would be the 18th, but that is our PRC meeting, so we're gonna have to change that around.
At the same
Change this
time.
meeting. It's the
yeah.
same time, yeah, just because of Martin Luther King Day.
Mhm. Can you do Wednesday?
I can do Wednesday, the 19th.
Well, why don't you talk, if I could suggest, why don't you talk to all the different boards and
Yeah.
committees, get your core group? Because Shauna, you can always communicate with everybody by email,
Mhm.
and
Oh.
technically, everybody other than 3 town board members can communicate back and forth by email,
Right,
other than planning board, zoning board, yada, yada, right?
Mhm.
So you could do like a group email to kind of just start to organize some basic stuff and then
and then set the meeting.
figure out. Karen, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Okay, all right, so stay tuned. Go ahead, Karen.
So you say Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a Tuesday? My calendar shows it as Monday, the
It's a
17th.
Monday.
It's
Monday,
Monday.
the
I just
17th.
said we don't have our normal PRC planning board review meeting on Monday. We have it on Tuesday instead at 9 AM.
The 17th is a holiday.
17th, we're closed.
It's a holiday. I understand that. So we do have a meeting on the 18th then.
We do not.
We do not.
No meeting on the 18th.
Okay.
And I will be in communication with you all about the next meeting.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Maybe you can talk Adeline into being the town board's
I was
representative.
gonna say, it seems pretty simple, Adeline.
You get one nailed down and you got Karen.
I mean, you're
and if you've
here.
got that,
Right.
Look, you've got 3, you're halfway
Right.
there, so.
Right?
depends what time the meetings are.
All right, thank you, Oksana and Karen.
Thank you, everyone.
All right,
Thank you.
bye.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.